Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Adam O.G. Over the holiday season, I had the pleasure of connecting with good friend and second-time guest on the pod, Mike Zung. Mike's a seasoned entrepreneur who recently sold his direct-to-consumer brand Blue Mist to home and wellness company Zajix. I hope I'm pronouncing their name right. Mike is a seasoned entrepreneur. He has been involved in technology and e-commerce businesses and also mentors startups at William & Mary and the Startup Accelerator or Entrepreneurs Roundtable Accelerator. Mike was part of the team that had built out DoubleClick, which is now part of Google in the Asia Pacific region. In our conversation, we explore a variety of topics that Mike and I believe are important for 2025. We talk about the entrepreneurial landscape from the perspective of AI and streamlining operations to talking about the brand building and brand dynamics. Mike shares his unique insights, and we also talk about the importance of stepping outside your comfort zone and about embracing authenticity, whether you're an aspiring founder, first-time founder, or a seasoned professional. I hope that you'll find this conversation to give you some insights into your journey ahead for next year. Wishing you and your loved ones a joyous holiday season. Without further ado, here's my conversation with the one and only Mike Zung. Looking forward into 2025, what sort of advice would you give to founders, brand builders out there?
First of all, I can't even believe that it's 2024 is coming to a close. My advice for an entrepreneur in 2025 is just do something that scares you. Do something that you just are scared of doing, that you have a fear of. For a lot of us, it's just being in front of a camera. And it's just something that we're just not used to. And I think that you got to get over the cringe factor. And then by the 10th or 15th video, you'll just be comfortable with both the way you look and your voice. And even if you're not comfortable with it,
Creating
realize,
content. We're recommending founders to create content.
Right.
Get out there.
Right.
Get from behind the scenes. Be the face of the brand.
Be the face of the brand.
Yeah.
And I know that you have a lot of other things that you're juggling with. Well, use my other piece of advice. Try to use ChatGPT or AI to set your schedule in an appropriate way, because this is just as important to your business as buying a set of supplies or hiring somebody or taking care of some operational thing or making sure the fire extinguisher ratings are appropriate or whatever you do that keeps you busy all day long. Get out there and do something that scares the hell out of you.
Yeah,
is my piece of advice for 2025.
Love
and start in January. One with you, 2 or 3 with others, and just kind of get my whole self warmed up into it. But now I'm moving into this totally next phase.
Yep.
I mean, I think it's going to be critical, really. It's just par for the course in a way. Got to get used to it. I don't know if I'm that cringy about hearing myself, although that still takes some getting used to, or seeing myself. Still, you probably feel this as well in some ways. Okay, if I do one, I'm going to have to do this every,
committed to this.
And committed to it, at hell or high water, I have to do this thing.
And good?
We're good.
Recording?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, you're rolling.
Yeah.
I'll check back in.
Make sure everything's still... So is it live, or do you push a button or something? Or
it's just recording.
Yeah. So it's free form recording. And
We'll chop it. 34 million small businesses, of a percentage of that's retail.
So about 10% of the total United States is an entrepreneur, in some ways. And it could be a real estate agent. It could be an interior designer. It could be an insurance broker.
Florist,
it
bakery.
Could be a florist, a bakery.
A couple chains,
what is the old thing? So I think it could be all of those things. And
these are the businesses that aren't yet fully online. They have a Google's, Angie's, maybe if you're, service provider. But they a majority haven't fully embraced online.
Right. And I guess there was a certain surge in this in the 2000s, perhaps, where everybody needed a website. And then people got on WordPress, or people got on, I remember like Microsoft Front Page, but
Front Page,
like it could have been anything.
I used that.
Right.
HTML was
exactly.
Front Page.
And then it kind of evolved. But I think it's still pretty democratized. So a Shopify site costs $29 a month still. So it's pretty easy to get started.
$29 with a theme,
with a theme.
ready to launch a product catalog with multiple variants, everything you want to do. And you can do most of the content uploads from your phone.
And when I started Bloomis in 2018, it was also $29.
Yeah.
And people were like, who did your site? I mean, they were blown away by us. And we pretty much picked the most common theme. It was called block shop or block theme, whatever it was. And it was pretty common. And I think we did pay like $149 for it. One time.
Premium theme, yeah.
Yeah. One time premium theme. That's it. And I think the key thing for us was absolutely the photography, like the quality of the photography.
The aesthetic, the visuals are quite elevated. Someone with taste. It's not just like selecting, but it takes a certain type of taste, and it really shows.
But the beauty of today is that I'm not saying you can do it all with AI, because even with AI, you still need taste, and you can't necessarily give taste out. But I assume with an interior designer and the 67,000 interior designers that are out there, for the most part, 90% of them probably should have some level of taste. You know what I mean? And the beauty is you can take a photograph, an image that doesn't have the perfect lighting, doesn't have the perfect sense, perhaps, and you can tune it, for fairly low cost. Whereas before, you needed a professional to spend hours, if not days, touching up photography.
Yeah.
And now you can just set it and forget it in a way. I mean, just get everything.
Kind of recommend what to update. Or
the other thing is I'm playing with is just the whole, like, building a whole site with AI, in 5 minutes or less kind of thing.
Just what you want.
I mean, just through prompts and that sort of stuff. Something I'm still pretty new at. I'm just like learning, like Relume is one, RELUME, that I was just looking at.
Cool.
That helps you with that. Or, I mean, I know Hostinger has a lot of those options as well.
Cool. We'll link those up in the notes.
Yeah. So I think that those are really interesting to be able to create from very quickly to scale up and utilize things that, I mean, you would have. A copywriter would have charged you $10,000-$15,000 to do all of that work.
Yeah.
Now you might say, okay, well, isn't it copying? Isn't it non-original?
Yeah. What's your perspective to copying originality with computer generated or artificial intelligence generated content?
I don't know about you, but I use ChatGPT every day.
Yeah.
And
it's become a daily. The app for Mac or PC, it's great.
Yeah.
I have the mobile app.
Right.
It used to be in a browser, Chrome browser, but now it's in its own container on the screen.
And this is kind of creepy, I suppose, if you think this way. Although I've been in digital since 99, and my brain has kind of turned this off a little bit. But I can understand the creep factor in some ways. When you start using a ChatGPT or a Gemini, it starts learning your tone of voice and your style and your background. And take what I did at Bloomist and take and they could pull it into the way it's written. So
for one quick second, how do you talk to your GPT? How do you get it to get the results you want? How do you talk to it? They are a sort of a living, breathing creature, but how do you talk to your GPT?
How do you talk? What's your love language? I'm kind of traditional. I just type and give prompts, but more recently, because I've been busy and I've been doing it in the car, because like you and I think we both have sort of long car trips. I mean, we're going to Pennsylvania, we're going to wherever, and you're driving and you just want to kind of like, you have thoughts and you want to get work done. And so I have started dictating, into it and having conversations and you just get used to it. It's a little bit like where we got I dictate text messages in the car and things like that. And you just kind of get used to it. My sister's been doing it for years, but then I finally taught her, hey, you could do emojis with dictation. You just say like poop emoji and then it'll put it on. She's like, what?
It's worth 1,000 words.
So we're always like learning new things and new tricks. And even if you've been using it for a while, there's always some new ways of using it. So I love to compare notes with people. I mean, she literally, my sister, I mean, she mapped out her weekly schedule using ChatGPT as example. I mean, you could just throw
She gives
them
it the
a bunch of
information.
things like, I need to run 3 times a week. I need to do my yoga twice a week, and that's not 10 o'clock on Tuesdays and Thursday. Like, put all of that stuff into one schedule and it pops out.
That's awesome.
And I think that kind of work plan is critical. And that's something that also, I mean, when you think about the 67,000 interior designers or the
300,000 retail or 154,000 small retailers.
Right. And then there's what, 34 million kind of entrepreneurs out there.
Yep.
I mean, all of us need to learn how to schedule our time most appropriately.
Yep.
And then sometimes I come to a day in my schedule and I only have like one thing on my calendar and it's like, oh, nice, free day, I can think. But then it's like, wait, how come I haven't scheduled things, even if it's my own time, to think about X or think about Y during those periods of time?
Planning requires a dedicated time to pull together information and like you're mapping it out over the course of most of the time it's 8 to 12 hour days, depending.
Right.
So yeah,
and we always use the excuse, of course, Adam, don't we, that we don't have enough time for that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so busy, I can't get to that.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you really?
Hour of Netflix, hours doom scrolling or TikTok. Yeah.
And I know we can't. I mean, I'm so bad at this; it's incredible. But I know we can't necessarily stick to that particular schedule all the time, but I think just having it there and knowing that you've violated that accountability that you've set for yourself and set your intentions in the morning and things like that. I mean, it always sounds a little quirky to me because I wasn't raised with that kind of language, although I know younger folks are much more attuned to it because that's just how they've been accustomed to it, you know, setting your intentions in the morning and all these kinds of things. I mean, you could call it whatever you want. I mean, whether it's your intentions or your schedule or your goals or whatever. But it's just about adhering to that. And I think that things like ChatGPT really help, or Gemini, whichever one you prefer, really, really do help in organizing that in the most appropriate way. So I think it's a combined thing too when you're focusing on the 34 million entrepreneurs or whatever it might be, like that bigger set. I think it is a combination for sure of actual tools, like how do you set up Shopify, what's a good domain name kind of thing, to literally coaching, like how to hire a staff or how to tell somebody no, or how to get a sale. I mean, just some real, just basic coaching things. So that's kind of interesting and exciting. And I feel like I can kind of affect a broader group of people.
Love that.
Having said that, I also have been involved in businesses that have sold to enterprise clients, and I do have contacts that are interested in me helping them with enterprise clients, and at DoubleClick, which is now part of Google, and at Bazaar Voice, which is like a big rating review, where I spent some serious time. I mean, and I sold to Epson, and I sold to Estee Lauder and L'Oreal and others. I mean, it's like, I love that challenge as well. Yeah.
You've both been on you've been on both sides.
Yeah.
From the company side, also building your business, building multiple businesses.
Right.
So I just kind of step back 2 steps around focus. It's like the calendar, being intentional about how you spend your time.
Right.
This is competing for, do I do Facebook? Do I do Meta? Do I do TikTok now? Whatnot? The new social media. Should I be doing live video? Where do I focus my time?
Blue Sky. Are you on Blue Sky?
I haven't heard, but let me write that down.
What are you talking about? That's the newest, like Blue Sky.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little blue butterfly.
I've heard of it. I haven't even checked it out yet. Andrew Sorkin. I think he was promoting it recently.
Was he?
Yeah. He's like, I'm not leaving Twitter, but I'm going to be on Blue Sky, something like that.
I mean, weren't we just getting on Threads? You know.
There's so much as a small business focus and like scheduling time. So you're pivoting.
So I still, to be clear, so I just
tell us about what
announced. So we announced that I'm selling Bloomist to a great company called Ameni, which is part of Zogix, which they sell to 18,000 hotels. They sell everything from gym equipment to shampoos and soaps and everything, which is
Congratulations, buddy.
very, very
Awesome.
complementary to Bloomist, because at Bloomist we sell to a lot of hotels and professional companies. I mean, when there's a bud vase in your room with some dried flowers, a lot of times that might be Bloomist. So I think it's a really good fit for them and a really good home for Bloomist going forward. And yeah, I'll be working with them over the course of the next year, to help to build their
Congratulations,
trade
buddy.
programs and so forth. But yeah, I mean, they own it, and I think it's a great home for them. They're going to still have a lot of upside. I listened to another person who sold businesses, and and they say they don't necessarily want to sell it to somebody at the peak and then watch it go down,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just bad karma,
Yeah.
Now I wish I
It's your
could
baby.
actually predict when it would start to go down. Like I wouldn't have predict that necessarily.
Yep.
But for me, just timing wise, I think it's just great to be able to turn Bloomist over to those folks, and focus on some other huge interests of mine.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
From transitioning from, you had meant, we were talking about this a little earlier, more into consulting, you mentioned.
Right.
So why consulting? What sort of excites you about working with other retailers, other brands? And is that what you want to focus on? Like smaller, you were talking about like smaller brands, SMBs.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's where the decision still needs to be made. I'm a little all over the place in terms of who I'm talking to, because I believe that what I do can help a P&G as well as a small cosmetics startup that's a one-person founder. And a lot of principles are the same in terms of entrepreneurship and in terms of what you need to do. Sometimes there's more internal vested customers than if you're a one-person show. But at the same time, a lot of the principles are the same. So what I had a digital agency previously that I sold, and I realized I just really enjoy the challenge of learning a multitude of different businesses. And I also just love teaching and coaching and just understanding what makes a certain brand tick, where a certain brand could go, and just taking on that challenge, and working with a business owner like yourself and saying, okay, where can Well Woven go? I mean, what can it do next? I mean, what areas do you have huge strengths? Manufacturing here in the United States, or, can you make a upcycled, recycled, sustainable rug product?
that market, yeah.
Or, it's just so fascinating. I mean, you like just taking a look and deeper dive under your hood and seeing where you can go on Amazon and seeing how you can improve your inventory management, and also I think there's a lot of hype and a lot of misdirection out there. I have been spending the last 2-3 months trying to watch every YouTube video around like affiliate marketing or Shopify or getting started on Shopify, and it almost seems like every single one of them, okay, it has some solid advice at the beginning, and then about halfway through, they just throw something out there like, you're like, what? And then you just kind of dig into the person and you realize that they have some sort of affiliate marketing program with some type of solution that really doesn't necessarily benefit the shop owner. Now, I'm not against affiliate. In fact, I'm sure I will subscribe to it as well. I mean, I actually already have a Shopify link, and by the way, we're going to put it in the show notes. But I mean, like, who wouldn't use Shopify? I mean, there's other options. I know BigCommerce and some others, but I mean, for a small business, I mean, of course you'd use Shopify.
They've just eaten up the market. They took what was complicated. Magento Day, it's transitioned, but over the years, but they just simplified it, and they've just kind of eaten up the market, and they have the best in class tool, and it's a great brand, and they're very small business oriented, small and big business. Harvey Weinstein, Harvey Finkelstein.
Yeah,
he's at both levels. He's meeting with SMBs, and he's also with enterprise customers, and they do that well, and they communicate that really well, and the tools are the same.
Right.
It's the same. You mentioned big businesses have the same problems. Small businesses have the same problems. It's just the scale and scalability of systems. It's probably part of their secret sauce. They're able to solve that for both ends, but you need front end. It needs to be mobile friendly. It needs to be able to feed to TikTok, which is what we use. We feed our Shopify to TikTok. So they've just done a great job at that. Yeah, I guess what are the challenges you see for small businesses?
Yeah.
Where you mentioned there's a lot of information out there. It's hard to disseminate what's important and make decisions. AI now is sort of a catalyst. Information, it's changing the game. You mentioned previous to the show, you were talking about imagery and how it's simplifying
Right.
Production of content.
Right.
What's in 2025? Where does that sort of? How does this? What problems do you see, and how do you see those factors sort of
Yeah.
informing how you build or how you think about the market?
Yeah. Yeah, I will say that AI should definitely continue to help to democratize commerce. So we've been this path to democracy, if you will, for the last 20 to 30 years.
Decentralizing information.
Yes. I mean, I remember, again, this dates me, but I think it's just relevant to this. I mean, Interwoven or these other big commerce companies that would charge $10 million to create a website that now Shopify does for $29.
Maybe Shopify Plus is $2,500 a month.
$2,500, but I mean those are for folks doing probably $2 to $3 million a year. So it's still quite a value to be for. I mean, what are you doing? Like 300,000 a month, and you're spending 3,000 on your primary infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is a bargain, and I'm sure anybody would factor that in that way. And then the other thing, I mean, and we didn't mention this when we talked about Shopify. I mean, it's a bit of a flywheel because they have so many apps now that are made by third parties, and a bit like the iPhone or the Android. I mean, there's an app store out there that you can just plug stuff in for $5, $10, even free to certain levels. That would have also just cost tens of thousands of dollars, or you'd have to pay somebody to customize.
Like, for example, countdown clock. We need something for Black Friday. We got a simple countdown clock we'll use. Boom. Done. It's there.
Install it. It's there.
Pop it up.
Boom. Done.
Yeah.
So I think that I think it's really democratized things, and AI just continues that trend because, like I just said, you still, even with all of that $29 a month, blah, 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 I still needed to hire a copywriter, like a real live person for $15,000 minimally to do
per year or per project.
Just like at least a one-time thing to get all my copy on my site done, my about us, all my products, using the same tone and feel, etc.
By the way, that's the real, like, you're summarizing the cost. I feel like as a small business, we hire someone per hour.
Yeah.
It's I'm making this number up, $50 an hour.
Right.
But what we often, I feel like I've missed is, what's the true cost of this? What's this cost? What's the project going to cost in 3 months? The true
and
cost.
The other thing is, first of all, he doesn't work 24/7. So you have to, you're already going to have holdups just because he's not awake at 3 a.m. when you have this incredibly brilliant thought. But the other thing is, I mean, it does add up. And the next thing you know, you spend 3 months of him and 40 hours a month at, whatever, 100, 150. I mean, it's like 5,000. Okay, you're up to 15K. Suddenly. I mean, it's like a little. I mean, we always talk about that frog in the water and lukewarm, and then you slowly raise the temperature, and the frog doesn't jump out because it doesn't realize that now it's boiling. I mean, it's the same thing a lot of times with our costs. Our time. A lot of times you'll get into a solution that costs you maybe $300 a month, but before you know it, you've used it for a year, nobody's touched it, and it's $3,600 out the window. I mean, what could you have done with that $3,600 as a small business? Probably quite a lot.
$36 of inventory, advertising.
So whilst it's democratized, I mean, you as a business leader, as the owner, as the power, as the source, as we say, of all of this, I mean, you constantly have to be all over everything all the time. But I was going to say with AI, I mean, in 2025, I mean, I don't think you'll replace necessarily 100% of your operating $15,000, but you could probably get it down fairly low. And then we were kind of touching on this a little bit, but I just want to expand on it a little bit more.
Sure, please.
We were talking about AI copywriting and does it feel like it? And I can tell when somebody sends me something that they wrote with AI, just because I know that they couldn't possibly write like that, you know? So I do believe that it isn't like you shouldn't just take it, copy and paste it and throw it on your site. I mean, it should just save you 90% of your time, but don't make it save 100% of your time. Don't just copy and paste it and expect it to be. I mean, read through it.
It's a thought partner.
And if anything, give it that feedback, rather than just like take it offline and change it. Give it that feedback, and so it can learn.
As you would with a person. As you would with a person, back and forth. I like this. Can you make it sound more like this? Make it sound more like Nike, or whatever words you would use to describe what you want with a human. Do that there.
Right. And just act like they're your copywriter. So it's not necessarily going to do everything for you, but you should definitely try to utilize it to the extent that you possibly can. And I do feel, you might say, well, isn't that replacing a copywriter's job? Aren't they losing their job? No, I mean, maybe the copywriter is starting his own company. I mean, doing AI prompts and probably do 10 times more work.
Take on triple the amount of clients.
Triple the amount of clients. So if anybody is losing their job, it's people who aren't learning how to use AI.
That's like my copywriters I work with. That's what I want them to do. That's what I would want, is to learn how to use AI and be comfortable with the tool. They can increase their output.
Or instead of saying, I'll do it in 3 weeks, they can say, I'll have it to you tomorrow.
Exactly.
And that makes it that much better.
Exactly.
And I'll pay you more to get it to me by tomorrow.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So what else is going on in 2025? What are you seeing, Adam?
2025, what are we seeing? I mean, I think on the topic of AI, I think people are getting more comfortable using it. Just on that same topic, I think people are more comfortable using ChatGPT. I think people are understanding more of how it's using, but I think we're still at the early adoption phase. I think as companies, SMBs, or even large companies can go further, faster. Rather than using Google, use ChatGPT. I think that's just like creates efficient. I'm excited about that. What are we thinking about? Let me open the window real quick. What else are we excited about for 2025? Well woven is just really, we have a couple new categories that we launched this year, custom rugs. So we're excited about that. And just figuring out.
So can people design their own rugs and custom?
Yeah, we're going towards designing rugs. Size, shape, size and shape at the moment.
Okay.
Because the common issue is you have a 10 by 15 space and your table is maybe 6 feet long. So you have a preference with chairs on the table, or you want the chair fully on when the rug's not on the table but on the carpet.
Right, that makes sense.
So there's every space is unique. So we're seeing a trend in people wanting to get.
So instead of like 8 by 10 and 5 by 7, you could do 6.5 by
15.
15.
Yeah.
Because that's just the size that they need for their chairs to be on the carpet. When you push back.
Yeah, exactly.
Fascinating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or you want to create a unique space and you want a carpet that extends one half of the space.
Right.
What we do is wholesale, focusing on retail partnerships, whether it's a Wayfair, it's a Home Depot, Lowe's, a big percentage that's .com, but learning how we provide the supply chain expertise and these services to other retailers.
Yeah. Do you see, and you sell under the Well Woven brand when it is at these retailers like a Wayfair or a Lowe's or a Home Depot?
Some private label, some under Well Woven brand, both.
So is there a certain differentiation between the product lines?
In cases, sometimes it's specific.
Do they specifically say and order?
For the most part, yeah. They'll select which product they want to, or it goes into a certain shelf position. If it's shaggy, they'll private label our shaggy under there, and we'll partner with them to build the product, design the product, and get it onto the shelf, the digital shelf and physical shelf too.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. Are there any software tools that you're seeing out there that are helping 2025 that you're like, hey, I want to use that more? I mean, aside from AI, like almost every SaaS tool out there says they're implementing and integrating AI into their SaaS tool. But I'm just curious if there's any sort of SaaS tools out there that you're seeing that, you'd like to
Implement, yeah.
implement.
Planning tools are interesting. Continuing to study that.
Yeah.
We spoke on this recently.
Right.
Different demand planning. We've tried it a couple years back.
Right.
We're still in Excel and Google Sheets.
Yeah.
And we talked, I think the last time we met, we talked
Right.
about how advanced Google Sheets has come. They're
Right.
programmable. You can run software on the back end of it.
Right.
So it's dynamically processing info and functioning. Demand planning is interesting. I think imagery software, I think that's continuing to evolve, like Midjourney and these tools.
Right.
Those are just getting better and
Right.
allowing us to just expand what we do. So we communicate through visuals. We're selling a visual product. So yeah, man, I mean, there's not a whole lot. Honestly, it's like this year's been cord cutting. So next year, there might be more expansion. Our ERPs, where we continue to, our ERP is another, like a version of QuickBooks
Yeah.
that kind of handles planning. It handles actually today it's mostly warehousing and sales and transactions and accounting stuff, but advancing that. So
you don't have any like sort of big name ERP like Sage or
Microsoft Dynamics.
Not Dynamics. Yeah.
There's a couple others out there this year. I've been, we're studying like Fulfill.io, Sage we've looked at in the past, and
Right.
there's Oracle, NetSuite.
Right.
All these software, they're very customized. They're very tailored. And what I found is Sage designs the software and Microsoft designs the architects of software, but you have to go to these third-party partners to implement.
Yeah.
And there's there's a lot of, the work is working with these partners, which are agencies. So that's been a learning. We've been on Microsoft since 2017. So that's been quite a bit of learnings on working with those partners. But it's investing. It's part of it's calendarizing what we want to get done with the software. Whether it's direct integrations with retailers, or it's in our warehouse right now, we're working on the way we generate shipping labels, the way the pick and shipping labels are generated. So there's a project on that. So that's what we're thinking about. How can we reduce the amount of manual steps that take place into generating shipping label?
A pretty fascinating area. I was just talking to a company. I guess I'll give them a shout out, but I've not utilized them. It's called Day Zero. They're just getting started. But they really feel like there's a area for disruption in the ERP space, because there is that big gap between, I guess you could call it a QuickBooks up to a NetSuite, or a Sage. And when you look at the costs for a NetSuite or a Sage, I mean, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say it's minimally $30,000 a year for those softwares, whereas QuickBooks is like $600.
Yeah.
But QuickBooks doesn't do a lot of the stuff that you need NetSuite to do. Primarily, I mean, one of the things where we went with the Sage was we needed to put fully loaded costs in. I mean, we were shipping it in from India or something like that. You got to account for the shipping costs,
shipping duties,
and the
tariffs,
duty costs, and the tariffs, etc. And that changes every batch of rugs. And you kind of want to know that as an average selling price.
So critical.
Because the price fluctuates. You can't use a price that you had 3 years ago.
100%.
And there could be like a little, like for 6 months, there could be a little shipping issue, like a strike,
especially
or something.
in the last few years.
In the last few years.
Pandemic, prices shot up, they dropped, and Trump's coming. We don't know what's going to happen, but you need to be able to be flexible and understand true costs. And we're in a world where I think 2025, this will be talked about more, but real-time costing, like real-time knowing what your profit is.
So that's what this, and again, I don't want to super plug them because I've not fully vested them out, and I'm sure they'd appreciate this shout out, but Day Zero.
That's their name, Day Zero?
Day Zero.
DAYZERO.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And
tell us about them.
And, but that's what they are tending to do, is be able to give you real time, like the stock market kind of, this is what your rug costs today, therefore that allows you to price it appropriately as well, because you're always kind of guessing, okay, if I go 70%, I'm not that you would ever do 70% off, but that's rug companies have known to do that, right? How much margin are you actually making on that today? Because of this variableness in the pricing structure.
And how to think like a merchant, where you have 100 styles, but 20% of that has to, you can liquidate that. Like, how do you look at gross margin? Even when you're discounting 70%, if you freed up the 20% to create cash flow, how can you free up that cash flow maybe at net zero or break even? Those are the sort of tactics, I think, running an e-commerce business, running a business with physical goods, the better you get at managing cash flow and discounting and knowing your profitability, the more empowered you are as a business.
I mean, think about this also, especially in the rugs business.
Yep.
I know that you have your own facility in Pennsylvania, but a lot of people use 3PLs.
Yep.
And I had a 3PL that was charging me, I mean, at one point, it got up to like $12,000 a month for storage, right?
A lot of money.
And a lot of it was slow. I mean, we went through a lot of different iterations at Bloomist, not to get into the gory details, but when you
dead
think
stock
about the
happens,
fact that, okay, so maybe the dead stock is $1 and you sell it for 12 and you have great margins, but if it's sat there for a year and you're paying storage of $5,000 a month,
Yep.
that's another math
a few bucks every
problem
month is being added to
that
the
you have
COGS.
through every single month. Some costs are being added to that storage.
Yep.
So you either need to find a better storage arrangement, or you need to get that stuff out at any price almost.
Yep.
So then that can be a challenge too, with the whole process. Just
Inventory,
because,
cash flow.
yeah. How do you do that math? And then how do you liquidate appropriately, right?
Yep.
I mean, that was an issue for me as well at one point, where can you find a home for these things?
Yep.
And I was almost finding that it was actually cheaper for me to sell it to my end customer at 70% off than liquidating it to somebody else.
Yep.
But then what does that do to your brand? Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Like, it really depends. I mean, can LVMH do that 70, 80% off sale? Not really.
No.
But can they put it out the back door somehow or another? I guess so. I mean, obviously they got caught for burning stuff or whatever it was.
Right, they've done stuff like that.
Yeah. Shredding things. But I think that's another challenge. So I think we've talked about this, but I still think that small businesses up to very large businesses are still challenged by two main areas, especially when you talk about physical retail. One is inventory management planning.
Mm-hmm.
And I do work with a company called Seventh Online, as well as a small app called Genie.io, getgenie.io, and seventhonline.com. And both of those are trying to solve the inventory planning problem that still exists today, and most people use Google Sheets or some derivation of that.
Yep.
And then the other one is marketing attribution and planning and how to spend that budget most appropriately.
Yep.
And it's always a joke that CMOs have the shortest tenure of any C-level executive. Because they take the blame first, right?
Okay.
I mean, and it's always like, wait, how come we're not selling? It's the marketing, and it's still. I mean, I've been working on this problem really. I feel like 25 years since DoubleClick days, where we still. I mean, because DoubleClick was like revolutionary. It used to be one of our.
Tell us about DoubleClick for those that might not have heard about it or heard about it, but
so DoubleClick was sold to Google in 2008, but prior to that, I mean, they started in '96 as the first company to really deliver the banner ad. So they made the 468 by
We're talking Windows 95 still. Yeah.
Right. I mean, on Netscape, and their first client was like Alta Vista, and I mean that kind of stuff. So
AOL days.
And they came up with really the cookie. So this idea of putting the cookie to, at least from an ad tracking point of view.
Okay.
I mean, they didn't invent the cookie, but utilizing the cookie to say, hey, Adam's seen this. Or we don't know that Adam's seen it, but we know his computer has seen this ad, and so only serve it to him 5 times. DoubleClick came up with the entire closed loop system, so we knew. I mean, this was in '99. We had come up with, we called it Boomerang. We knew that somebody purchased something, so we can track the entire ROI. So closing that loop on the sale. So they were kind of revolutionary around that.
Cool.
They were then they used to sell it as media. So they used to be an ad network. And then they realized their technology was more powerful than their media, because I remember the Wall Street Journal came along. And that was their first tech customer in 1998, that said, we have a sales force. We don't need your sales force. We just want your technology. And so we started serving banner ads to the Wall Street Journal. And I guess the rest is history. But I mean, when Google purchased DoubleClick, it was primarily still a search company. 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
I mean,
just a few years after
and
launch.
just paying for words.
Yep.
Yeah.
They were just figuring out how to monetize the business.
Right,
at that
right.
point.
And DoubleClick had the whole publishers and agencies
Okay.
working together
Okay.
and brokering. And so it was one of Google's most successful acquisitions to purchase DoubleClick. And it kind of changed their mindset a little bit too, because Google was always around small businesses and kind of monetizing what used to be the Yellow Pages, and basically killing
Penny
that
Saver, Yellow
business
Pages.
completely. I
Yep.
mean, you haven't seen one lately, right? Yeah.
So is it safe to say that DoubleClick was sort of the core technology that powered, or was the foundational?
Yeah,
piece of
and you'll still
technology?
see it today if you if you see an ad and you just mouse
says
over it,
DoubleClick,
it
yeah.
still says doubleclick.net,
Yeah, cool.
where it's served by. So it's basically the AdSense business
Yep.
of Google,
Cool.
that still exists today.
Cool.
So I mean, you just kind of learned a lot about how things were put together and how company can grow. And we have a great like sort of alumni group, I guess you could call it, of folks that kind of stemmed from that.
Cool. And you had moved out
yeah.
to Asia to start their office there, if I remember correct.
Yeah, that's right. I rose my hand in year 2000 to help start up Asia Pacific.
Cool.
So I was the first like finance director out there.
Cool.
And then I moved into a general manager role, taking care of China and Korea and Taiwan.
Awesome.
So really just
Oh.
starting up China for DoubleClick, which is now Google. I mean, it's kind of fascinating because I mean now Google is doing like 20, 30 billion. I don't know the exact number. It's not published, but outbound from China. Basically, that same office that I had started and helped start up is now, of course, Google, the search engine, is not available in China.
How does that work? Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Google's outbound sells, so they have a whole team in China selling to tremendously.
Wow, 30 billion.
Meta the same way, and Meta, I mean, announced last year that it is $15 billion dollar business outside of China. So that area has grown quite a lot. I mean, we've been talking about branding and talking about direct to consumer here. I think it's really kind of fascinating also where Chinese brands are trying to develop their own brands rather than just being the factory in the background.
Yep, we've seen that in 2024. I've been on Amazon, obviously, and the marketplaces. Are there any particular ones that you've seen grow, or anyone you'd want to shout out?
Brand-wise,
yeah, like Asian brands that are being successful at establishing themselves as a brand, not as a commodity product.
I find, I mean, the one that I recall quite well, and again, my former DoubleClick CEO invested in them, is Buffy. You know that they were a traditional manufacturer of bedding sheets and just completely
Buffy.
private label,
Check them out.
and then this is back in 18 or 19, but they launched their own line of eucalyptus bedding and comforters, and it kind of erupted. And again, this is just
It's the same fiber Allbirds uses. Sorry to interrupt you.
Is it?
I think so. The Allbirds shoes were made out of a natural fiber. I think it's eucalyptus.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So, and it's easy to grow, and it's similar to a bamboo. It's easy to grow, easy to
Low carbon.
Low carbon footprint, easy to replace, and you know, you're seeing a generation of Chinese that were educated here in the United States and then going back to help the factory and help to understand branding. I still think it's a bit of a challenge, but you see more and more companies that are branding themselves. I mean, DJI drones is probably a good example
So that's a global brand.
It's a global brand that's Chinese that you would recognize.
Always under scrutiny these days.
Always under scrutiny. I know that's the biggest challenge for them, though, as well as like, okay, is there something hidden in here, or
can these turn against us?
Yeah.
There's that in 2025. I'm curious how that's going to.
I mean, I think in 2025, just brand building has never been more at the forefront. And it has been for quite some time, ever since direct consumers have started to ease into the space. But I always say this with Loomis as well, or any other D2C, or yourself at Well Woven. I mean, you know, it can't be a nameless, faceless brand. And I know you've got yourself out there a good bit more.
Trying to,
because people want to know who they're buying from. And people are concerned, I'm not as good looking as I think I should be, or I speak with a stutter, and it's like, wait a second. I mean, those are the qualities that people appreciate. Like those are the qualities that people make
you
your brand
are.
feel more authentic,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
and you more real. I mean, they don't expect you to be
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt, George Clooney.
Either of those two.
Yeah, you know. I mean, Nescafe or whatever. Yeah, Nespresso, George Clooney, or Ryan Reynolds, perhaps. You know, they don't necessarily expect you to be that. I mean, you
Yeah.
look at some of the other famous brands. I mean, the Pillow Guy, for
Yeah.
crying out loud,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean,
What do they get right? What do the great brands get right? And that's something that, when you talk about positioning and like writing copy, presenting yourself, we've seen, just trying to figure that, like I'm speaking for myself, but also for other brands too. What are the brands that get it right, get right? And you're hitting on, I feel like your authenticity,
yeah,
right? Putting yourself out there,
right,
building in public. Those are things we saw a lot of in 2024.
right.
Brands moving more towards building in public, showing the showing the real, the good, and the unfiltered sort of view of the building the business.
Yeah, I think it's
But
about your positioning. I think it's about
positioning. How you,
it's so, it feels a little,
where's the art and where's the science here?
because, and Toys R Us was a big client of mine in Asia Pacific, helped them launch their first CRM program and that sort of stuff. And we always had a persona, and it was always she in the meetings, of course. I mean, and still in the United States, when you think about consumerism, I mean, 82% of all purchases in the United States are still made by females. I mean, so it's just a fact, I'm not like leaning towards
it's
female.
common.
It's just a fact,
Yeah. Yep.
And so if 82% of your buyer, and it's not for all items. I mean, if you're doing art, spark plugs and auto parts, I mean, of course it's not going to be 82% female.
Yeah.
So I still think it's important, even though this is like a 1950s David Ogilvy kind of thing. I mean, like you still have to know who your audience is, you still have to understand who you're selling to. I mean, at Bloomist, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it is kind of the coastal elite that was buying a good chunk of Bloomist. Professional female who probably lives in either Santa Monica or Chelsea. I mean, those were our literally 1 and 2 zip codes.
You know your customer.
I mean, that's just who they are. I mean,
Yeah.
they drove a Range Rover. I mean, they 8 times over indexed to drive a Range Rover.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I guess she's driving a Range Rover. Yeah. So they're very less likely to buy an American car. But if they did, which one was it?
Ford Expedition or Chevy Suburban? It's got to be a Suburban.
Neither one of those two.
Really?
Actually.
A Cadillac.
It was
Escalade.
a Jeep.
Jeep. Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
like,
okay.
the
new one.
The nice Jeeps.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
when I did the survey, the Broncos didn't come out yet. So that could have, it's just sort of, yeah. I mean, but it's just kind of fascinating to study that. And that's not necessarily like something that I love them or whatever. I mean, it's just a fact of what your brand and what you've created is appealing to and striking a chord with. I mean, it could be, it could be different. I mean, I know Tractor Supply has a very different audience, right?
That's something like you may have an idea for a product and you may find that audience over time through iteration, and you figure out this is the demographic that really loves this idea, or you start the business with that in mind and you really focus. You mentioned your audience. How do you talk to that audience? I saw a video by I think is the founder of Raindrop, Jackie Spitzer.
Oh, that's fascinating. No,
and he talks about it was a talk on YouTube, and he talks about talking in the voice of the customer.
Yeah.
So it's expressing how writing your copy, for example, in the way that the customer would imagine themselves using the product, or owning the product, or feel using the product.
Right.
That was sort of a light bulb moment in 2024 for me. And how we write our copy. It's not about what we think the product is. It's like, how does a consumer imagine themselves owning or using the product?
That's fascinating.
So where do you look to get that type of data? Consumer research? Are there services out there?
Again, that's why I love this democratization again.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you at liberty to tell me roughly how many customers you have, but I mean, is it thousands, I assume?
Thousands, yeah, it's in the thousands.
I mean, it's thousands.
Yeah, but
I mean, once you
B2B
get
is a lot
over,
smaller.
I don't know, 1,000, I think one of the rules of thumb is like I think that's Nick Sharma always says, get your first 1,000 customers and don't use any marketing for it. Actually, I'm quite sure it is him. Don't use any marketing to get, or any any bias marketing, like don't force it, right? Try and get a cross section of who would attract your customer, like, and then that way you can understand who your customer is with that
Put
first
it out
1,000.
there, promote it
Right,
lightly, but
right.
yeah, cool.
And I think you need at least 1,000 to start breaking this down. Like, okay, there's 803 women, there's X number of men. And I believe that with AI and that type of thing, it's so much easier. I mean, I bet you that you could take your customer list, and this is where it's a little, like just their names, just their first names, and put it into ChatGPT. And it'll tell you Adam, Becky, Mike, Mary, and even maybe a foreign name, but they would know that Indian name or that Japanese name, Keiko is, or whoever, Mariko, that's a female name. And so then they would tell you, okay, your customer base is probably, I mean, I know there's the Chris and the, Kellys and stuff that'll be confusing.
Jamie.
But but they'll probably tell you it's probably around 80% or whatever it is. So, I mean, that's just one small example of being able to, and then you could obviously get your demographics and your zip codes figured out. And with zip codes, then that opens a whole thing, and a lot of that's public in terms of their income. So
you get aggregated data quick.
So
within
before
an hour,
you know it, you're
going
to have this formulation of who your customer is. And you'll know pretty early on. And by the way, if you're not getting 1,000 customers within the first, months, depending on what you sell, I mean, obviously it's house sales or something large. It might boat sales. It might not be. But I mean, if you're just selling, something on, $150 or something, I mean, you should be able to get sort of roughly 1,000 within a certain span of time, and then that allows you to kind of start to hone your message and create this persona that's so critical. And then you start interviewing them. I mean, that's the other thing. Is just actually go out there and talk to them like IRL, as they say. I mean, over video or otherwise, and record it and try and understand like where they're coming from, why they bought your rug, what happened, and I bet you because
we're doing that right now.
Honestly, my niece, who's 35, she has 3 kids. She lives in the Poconos. And I keep telling her to just go because she needs a rug. She needs a living room rug. So I just keep telling her, just check out Well Woven, find something. I mean, I
gotta give you a code. She can even pick it up, or my colleague lives in the Poconos.
I mean, she lives in, I
have a colleague in Scioto, which is like right on the cusp of the Poconos. But
by the way, this is really interesting. This is definitely a sidetrack, but I mean, millennials, they live in these communities in like the Poconos, all like remote work and stuff, but they have like a chicken coop and they have like a whole like thing going on, and that's a whole different, interesting area. But I can see she's a perfect customer, I think, because I don't think she's nothing wrong with Well Woven, but I mean, it's not. I mean, you can go down here to RW Guild or like ABC Carpet or Restoration or something.
It's not a hand knotted.
And it's not hand knotted from some tribe in like whatever.
Turkish hand knot or Indian hand knot or Persian rug.
Which would cost how much more? 10 times?
Yeah, easily. With those products, it's more of an art piece, right? So the value is partially on the material, but it's also on the construction, the craftsmanship, maybe who made it. So that's
just a whole different audience. That is your Chelsea and Santa Monica, perhaps, but I mean, that is just not your mother of 3 in Scranton.
That needs something that
just needs something that holds up with the dog.
Exactly.
But looks damn as good as like just 10% or 20% less good looking. I mean, it's actually they look from a distance.
I mean, to a discerning eye, like I love all rugs, the high end and the low. Every price point. They're a solution to baby spilt milk. The cheapest rug will clean and last for years. A handmade rug might last for generations. But today, it's depending on the use case, And our use case is moms with toddlers and baby milk and baby puke and dog poop and cat poop and all these things that happen at home.
And you're perfect for that.
So trying to.
Which is like 80% of the population in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. This year, our messaging's also been more around cleanability. We're trying to play that up in messaging as well, trying to communicate that on the direct to consumer side, but the B2B side is a whole nother sort of, it's more around fashion, it's more around service, logistics, planning, the retailer needs the product in 12 weeks. It's being able to make sure the project hits the mark. So that's the other part of what we're building, and where my skill set is. I'm learning the brand building side, and that's something I'm excited about. And just like these conversations help sort of get that muscle and get the wheel.
It's like
turning.
going to the gym and like, okay, it's leg day.
Yeah, turn on that muscle.
So yeah, you gotta activate it, and I think once you start to do that, it'll help to clarify a lot of things. Like, am I going to use that channel?
Yep.
You know, well, does our audience use that channel?
Yep.
And then you'll find that millennials is the fastest growing TikTok. You know, I mean, like when you're targeting this sort of. And millennials, it's always kind of shocking for me to say, but they're in their 40s, you know, and they're a fast-growing group in TikTok, and I don't know. I mean, like we're always watching that ban and stuff, but I believe that that's going to be postponed.
Yeah,
for
2025.
quite some time.
Nothing happens with TikTok.
So a lot of people put a lot of effort into focusing on that area, and. I've been testing it out. I tested out with Bloomis for sure.
Yeah. How has it been? Like, what's your feedback? What's your feeling and feedback?
I would feel like, I think it's kind of exciting because you do get immediate feedback and the algorithms work and the setup is fairly seamless. I mean, I had somebody in TikTok help me out, but I think it's fairly straightforward. Yeah. And I think the technology is quite interesting. The live commerce side of it's interesting. The integration of the product is interesting. The ability to comment and share and kind of have a community feel is interesting. Obviously, both YouTube and Instagram are trying to steal as much as they possibly can and feature-wise. Just being able to like reply with a video. Yeah. That's something that's been part of TikTok for almost ever. Yeah. And then I just saw on YouTube that like in the last few weeks,
is that right?
Where you can actually reply with a video, like you can comment with a video.
Huh.
You know?
Okay. I didn't even know that was a feature. Okay. That's cool.
Right.
And Loom, we use Loom for sending video. You know, the Loom, the app.
Yeah, of course.
I thought that was a cool thing there, but it's interesting. YouTube and Instagram are closely watching, hoping that TikTok gets shut down, but it's not really. Doesn't look like it's going to happen.
I mean,
are there any indicators?
If anything,
are there any like?
Yeah, I've been following the story.
Yeah.
And
Trump administration, do they have any?
They lean more towards not banning.
Good.
I mean, I'm not like political in that sense, but I mean that's all the literature that I'm reading says. They would definitely prefer a solution with ByteDance that solves the quote-unquote problem, i.e. Perhaps ByteDance getting into a relationship with somebody like Oracle that can assure the American people that this is based in Texas and nothing can escape.
Security's there.
Yes, they own it still,
Yep.
but nothing can escape.
Got it.
And we can certify that because it's on our servers and we are managing it all.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, I mean, Trump's a business guy. He also has to understand, and this is absolutely true. I know TikTok puts this out a lot, but it's absolutely true. I mean, a lot of small businesses are really, really dependent on this tool.
It's become,
And a lot of even individual contributors, like we were just talking about this entrepreneurial culture that we've developed, 34 million people. I mean, a good chunk of the 150 million Americans on TikTok. Are making money off of it in some way, shape, or form. I mean, it's helping our overall economy.
If they were to get shut down, do you think that would transfer over to Instagram and YouTube in the same kind of way? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, not immediately, but then again, it won't get immediately shut down. The other thing that we're understanding is that even if TikTok loses its First Amendment case, it'll be appealed, and then it'll be appealed to the Supreme Court. And we know that the Supreme Court is also just kind of leaning towards at least allowing them to continue until the case is heard, which might actually be 1 to 2 years before it's actually even heard. But in the meantime, Trump could make some kind of allowance for them. Now, again, I don't think that he's going to allow China to own it. I mean, that's definitely a concern,
Right,
and a legitimate one,
Right.
To some.
Data governance is the
Right,
question. Yeah.
right. I mean, China has the same concerns with Tesla and Google and
Any company
Starbucks.
operating in the country, yeah.
You know,
Data, the servers have
I
to
mean,
be governed by, government has to have an access to the servers, yeah. And
Right.
they have to be in China.
Right.
It's a fair trade-off. It seems like a fair, for in the US to be similar, right?
Right.
To strike a deal that everyone's happy with. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I think that would be a win-win. And it's the type of thing I would think that that Trump would want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, Elon's got a big business in China too, and like you said, I mean, the Tesla servers, I do believe, because I mean, they could track every single driver, everything moving, but I believe that those servers have to be in China.
China businesses, yep.
Why not just do the same thing for American businesses or Chinese businesses operating in the US?
Yep.
They just have to have a certified system that doesn't necessarily allow for it. And if it's being housed by a third party like Oracle, which is American as apple pie, Larry Ellison, who is Elon's mentor, right? I mean, one would think. So. So those are so. I mean, I know we off track a little bit, but I think TikTok is a really, really big subject, just because it is such a force. I mean, no other company has reached 100 billion faster in the history of the world than TikTok in terms of revenue.
Yeah, just as a brand using it, the emails we get, the tools that are being unlocked within their software, every week they're unlocking new software. They're working at a
rapid pace.
It's really cool to see that happen. And the AOVs used to be $50. This weekend we had $300 sale. The AOVs are growing, which indicates that either an older audience is on the platform or people are just
or your
more
audience, because it's
spending.
been around since like the pandemic. I mean, your audience is
5 years
also
now.
it's
Yeah.
5 years. I mean, your audience is just getting
Maturing.
more maturing. I mean, they started at 22, now they're 27, 28. They're ready to buy a rug now from you.
Yep.
I mean, before it was like a fidget spinner or something. Yeah. So that's super fascinating. How many followers do you have on TikTok?
We're really low. We don't in the thousands, a couple thousand, I think. But very, very, very low. But
I mean, the nice thing about TikTok is you can actually pretty much grow your following a little bit faster than, at least from what I've seen, than Instagram. And Instagram used to be that way, of course.
And the game is changing in a sense.
Yeah.
The game it's all about. I just heard a couple people talking about this, but one piece of content can change your entire. It's all about what your next piece of content really. Right. It's about the content and how well that piece does. It's less, and the algorithm, depending on what's happening, will promote that based on, is it shares and engagement?
Right.
I think those are the two key metrics that the algorithms are looking at. There's less weight, or there's no weight, I think, on followers, and getting followers and likes.
Yeah.
It's more, that's sort of the game in 2025 everyone's talking about, is how do we get better at the craft of content creation. It's less about the vanity metrics of how many followers. Those will probably even go away. Is sort of like the thinking that a lot of the leaders in this world are talking about. What's your
100%. I mean, I've talked to a variety of different brands recently. I mean, this one that I always like to promote is called Mini Katana. That's the name of them, Mini Katana.
Okay,
cool. And they do these like mini katana swords, but they actually now branched into making full-sized animated katana swords, and because they can't advertise because it's a weapon, they have to have amazing social, and they do. I mean, when I first met with them, they had just under 10 million YouTube followers.
Yep.
Now they're up to 15. I mean, you can check it, Mini Katana, and they're huge on TikTok. And I met her and talked to her at a conference, and she said, well, we did 1,500 pieces of content last year. And they just took this one theme that went viral, which is taking a skeleton and chopping it up with a katana sword. And then they just started putting it into a Tesla and closing the trunk and watching it crush. And just it became a theme of theirs. They didn't even put a sword in the video sometimes. It was just a creative video.
It's the craft of content making. It's the craft of connecting idea with the audience.
And that's
yeah.
their brand
Yeah.
flavor too. It's
Yeah.
just kind of quirky
Yeah.
and kind of silly and
Yeah.
kind of macabre, I guess you could say, as well. Did you look them up? I mean, how many subscribers do they have?
16.6 million
Still, they're up to
followers.
16.6. Oh my God! So I mean,
Each video is getting 20,000, 13,000 views, 78,000. I mean, they have a few videos here, 871, 2 million views. So for a company that makes katana swords,
yeah,
so they
crazy, right?
Because it's a weapon, they're not able to advertise it.
They
Did I
can't
understand that
advertise on
correct?
Facebook
Okay.
or Google.
So they went into content creation
That's right.
to be able to...
In overdrive.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
And I've
You
talked
gotta
to
be-
others like fashion brands that do 600 pieces. But then I just heard a podcast, and I can't remember the brand, but they did like 11,000 pieces of content. But the thing, Adam, it's similar to this podcast we're doing, and we're filming it, and I don't know, we've gone an hour already.
Yeah.
But it's about taking that hour and then editing it down and splicing different pieces and using different parts of it
Yep.
in a
Value
variety of
nuggets,
different
finding
ways. And
little-
that's where AI can also really, really help. Like,
Yep.
where do you split it? What piece do you use?
Yep.
Which piece will be best?
Yep.
And you can test. So you can break this podcast down probably into, I don't know, like 60 different parts, right? I mean, by the time
yeah.
we're done,
Yeah.
or let's say 30,
Yeah.
and then you can test different pieces of the 30 pieces of content that you've now created. So from one video, now we have 30 pieces of content,
Yep.
right? Plus we can do some images from it and some stills, and
Yes.
I can put these glasses on, and we can see if it's silly. We can
Continue with
capture
the glasses.
it's a little, so yeah, let's talk about
Is
creativity.
this the 2025 look?
Yeah, I think it is.
Consulting.
It could be.
Consulting Mike.
And then I could also get, hopefully
intimidating.
Meta into these. So Mark, if you're watching, I mean, these would be cool. I mean, the Ray-Ban Wayfair, what is it?
Yeah, it's the Ray-Ban.
Ray-Ban.
I'm not sure what the name's called.
Yeah, I
but
think it's
Ray-Ban.
or the aviators are nice, but I think if these were using that Meta thing, what do they call
It's the Meta. Yeah, the name of it, I'm not sure. The Meta. No.
No,
Whatever
that's the other thing.
Meta glasses.
Yeah.
We'll get the name.
So speaking of that, though, Adam, I mean, seriously, when we're thinking about
The Ray-Ban
visuals,
Meta.
what's it called again?
The Ray-Ban Meta.
Just the Ray-Ban
the
Meta.
Wayfair.
Right, and the Wayfair, and you have a little big, huge light here
Yep.
that goes on when you're filming and stuff.
Yep.
Is that? I just listened to a Business of Home podcast, I think it was, where we were just really talking about 3D visuals. And that's amazing that you in the rug business and talking about 2025 and next year, yet you've not mentioned 3D at once. I mean, Apple came out with this incredible Vision Pro thing, and you could see your rug in a beautiful room, and I could walk around and I could sit on the rug and all that kind of stuff and touch it like this and place it. Is it still just not there yet?
Yeah, I think that's a great question.
Yeah.
3D, it's just seeing this last year with the visual tools that we use, what's happening, it's amazing. The application of it, it's still, we're seeing our partner retailers starting to implement it.
Right.
For example, Wayfair was early in this.
Yeah, I remember.
They take certain products, scan them in themselves off of high-res photos, and able to enable customer experience by using the AR, augmented reality, to position the rug in the space.
Yeah.
As a brand, we're following what they're doing. I think it's exciting what it's going to do for home goods, what it's going to do for fashion. I feel like we've been talking about it for a decade.
I remember at least a 10 years ago where eBay did have a function where you could try on sunglasses in Gap.
So did what's the really innovative one? The D2C brand that was started, just glasses.
Warby Parker.
Warby Parker, yeah.
They had it, right?
Similarly, they had that. You could even go into their stores, and they were doing.
And then we were like, okay, everybody's going to have that, and it's going to be
10
all
years
over
later.
the place.
Yeah.
And 10 years later, I think that's still like the example, right?
Yeah. I feel like it's been slowly being implemented into the consumer experience. Amazon does the same thing. They'll scan their top selling products and augment them. Shopify now allows you, through your mobile phone, to take pictures of your products.
Right.
So it is coming to D2C. It's an incremental customer experience add-on. Depending on what your product is, it's more important. So it's there. It's not as revolutionary, I feel like, as people think it should be. But I could be, I'm just a rug guy, so I could be totally off on this. But it's an incremental unlock. People are using it. We're just not talking about it, I think, as much. I don't know. What do you think?
It's a tough one. Having been in this technology space for quite some time, I'd imagine that if I'm a 3D rendering product company and I did an A/B test with your customers in some ways, I'm sure that the conversion rate, see, here's where it's tricky. The conversion rate of somebody using that tool versus not using that tool, I am sure is like 3x. But then you think about what is the intention of that person using the tool. It's like, because I really need a rug and I really want to know if this one's, I really want to get it right.
Yeah.
And I already had a proclivity to buy this rug anyway. So I was already in a group that was already going to be a high conversion rate anyway, you know? So then it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy that is 3x higher.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah, we've tried a couple tools. Yeah, and they work great. I mean, right now.
But that 3x is, by the way, like 1% of your conversions. You know what I mean? Right. So it's not like, and you can't force your other 99% to use this tool. Yeah, it's just the people who really wanted to use the tool really wanted to buy the product in the first place.
I couldn't say it better. You said it. Yeah, I think that's it. Important to have. It's an incremental add-on. It's 1% of, it's 1%. The 1%, the highly qualified customer that's using that.
They might also become more loyal and buy other rugs and things like that. So
potentially,
you'll probably get your money's worth out of the product, but like you said, it's not going to increase your revenue 30% or something.
Yeah, I think you said it well.
Yeah.
Have you seen any implementations of it that are cutting edge outside of, home goods?
I would say it's good that Wayfair does have it because there's so many products on Wayfair, and I actually have used it for Wayfair products, a stool or a foot thing, or a footrest or a lazy boy chair or a sofa. I think it's particularly good for large objects to see if it actually would fit in a room, especially like a New York apartment, and you're really trying to maximize the space. But then again, you don't want like a tiny little sofa or a twin bed that doesn't, like, you want to make sure your bed is as big as it can, but like not that big.
Yep. We've made lessons of buying and it comes and it's not the right size or the right fit.
Right. Yeah. Right. Or it can't even get up the stairs or something. Yeah. So I think that area is probably the most, but I would have thought, and so this is kind of interesting, that a rug, I mean, it's such a signature part of a room that you have to see every single time that you go in. Wouldn't you damn well want to know that it looks good?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Especially when you say you're getting into custom sizes and stuff. Like, what size do I need to make sure that the chairs pull out and I'm still on the rug itself and not half off of it, and so my chair's wobbly?
Yep.
I mean, what size do I need? And let me picture that. Yep. And let me pull the chair out and see if it's still on the rug. Absolutely. Oh, I need 8.5 by 12.5 or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
To fit it correctly.
Yep, absolutely. And the tool is, I mean, I've used Wayfair's, I've used Amazon's. It will map out objects. If you have a table already, you can layer in the rug within the space. We've mostly thought about through the eyes of our retail partners, but as we look forward, I think an implementation of that in our brand stores makes a lot of sense to your point. Yeah.
I mean, I get my email box kind of filled up with them, but yeah, there's quite a few. Yeah. And I'm sure they're knocking on your door as well.
Yeah. Which ones have you?
I mean, 3DM, I think, is the one that most recently has reached out, and I know they're pretty aggressive, and they have a pretty good product in the space.
Cool.
And we can link them as well.
Yeah, for sure. What's their name? 3M?
I believe it's
3DM. We can link it later.
Yeah, 3DM. 3DIUM. 3DM.
Interesting name.
Yeah.
3DM.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's one.
Looking forward into 2025. What sort of advice would you give to founders, brand builders out there? What's
First of all, I can't even believe that it's 2024 is coming to a close. My advice for an entrepreneur in 2025 is just do something that scares you. Do something that you just are scared of doing, that you have a fear of. For a lot of us, it's just being in front of a camera. And it's just something that we're just not used to. And I think that you got to get over the cringe factor. And then by the 10th or 15th video, you'll just be comfortable with both the way you look and your voice. And even if you're not comfortable with it,
creating content. We're recommending founders to create content. Get out there. Get from behind the scenes. Be the face of the brand.
Be the face of the brand.
Yeah.
And I know that you have a lot of other things that you're juggling with. Well, use my other piece of advice. Try to use ChatGPT or AI to set your schedule in an appropriate way, because this is just as important to your business as buying a set of supplies or
Taking care of
hiring
operational-
somebody or taking care of some operational thing or making sure the fire extinguisher ratings are appropriate or whatever you do that keeps you busy all day long. Get out there and do something that scares the hell out of you.
Yeah.
Is my piece of advice
Love
for
that.
2025.
Love
And
that.
start in January.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah. How about what are you thinking for 2025?
Yeah,
What's your piece of advice for the 33 million American entrepreneurs out there?
I'll be the risk averse version of what you said.
Okay.
Pay attention to the numbers. Look at sales, look at COGS. When you're going and stepping outside the comfort zone, try to do your best to calculate what you can, and also leave in a factor of margin for whether it's dollars or time in your schedule, to give yourself time to breathe, give yourself time to analyze where the progress of the business. So
Damn, I could have used that advice in 2024. So that's great.
Still figuring that out. I think we're probably lifelong. And then the other thing I'd say is AI. You mentioned.
Right.
I think we all just continue to experiment with it and embrace it and learn and study, prompt it, talk to it, just get more comfortable using it. We're in the early phases of it, as it seems that everyone's talking about. So see how you can implement it in your business and encourage others to use it. I recommend paying for it to get the latest model.
Full out of it.
What is that, the 04?
4.0 now?
Yeah.
No, it depends on which, if it's ChatGPT or otherwise. But they all seem to be priced at $19.99 or $20 a month. And if you end up using it as we're talking about, you're going to hit a memory limit real quick.
That's its context window.
And that context is pretty fascinating. It's pretty scary too, because they can hook you in, and therefore you can't really switch from using ChatGPT because it knows
so
everything about you. But maybe this is another kind of sub recommendation is use at least 2 to 3 of them. That way 2 to 3 of them know everything to the extent possible, so you can switch between them. But I think that's really great and sound advice for 2025. We should ask ChatGPT what's great advice for an entrepreneur in 2025 and see what the
ChatGPT, what's great advice for an entrepreneur in 2025? Real quick, while that's working, any tools that you've enjoyed, that you're looking forward to using in 2025? I'm a tool guy. I love, the latest and greatest, and just to understand where software development and where applications are going.
And I'm definitely going to need your help on one of them I was just talking about. But talking about inventory management, I'm still experimenting with marketing automation and marketing attribution tools, which I think are really, really interesting. I'm interested.
What's marketing automation? Just to break that down for...
So we talked about how do you keep posting on TikTok, and how do you keep doing email marketing? How do you do your, whether it be social media or your website or otherwise, and then how do you automate as much of that as possible? So if somebody, whether you're a B2B and you use HubSpot, as an example, I have a web capture, you have an email capture form, right? You send an email out right away welcoming them, and you send another one out after 7 days. I think that the marketing automation is an area that keeping a good